Sleeping Beauty is one of the weaker fairy tales, in my opinion. It's just about a girl who pricks her finger by a witch, I guess, or an evil fairy. It's kind of vague. Falls asleep. Guy like, oh, I'm gonna kiss you. Wakes up. And that's about it. There is an alternate version that people say is a dark version, but technically it's not the main one. But if you don't know that one, it's a king who sees her. It's like, oh, I want to do something to her. Does something. Something that makes her get pregnant. The babies come out, suck her finger, and the thorns are removed, and then she marries that guy. Very weird, but that's not the main version. The main version is boring. So, of course, making a film adaptation of this was very hard, and that's why it took 10 years. Well, not nothing, but he has very little character, if you know what I mean. If you've seen the movie, you know what I mean. The art style and feel of the next film, which came out 2 years later, 101 Dalmatians, feels completely different from Sleeping Beauty, as well as the previous films, other than, I guess, Lady and the Tramp. What makes Sleeping Beauty very interesting is that while in the 50s we've seen classic films with more character focus, this one focuses off the main characters entirely. Our prince and princess are so underdeveloped, despite the fact you might think the prince might get more development since he has more than the previous two, he still does nothing. Well, not nothing, but he has very little character, if you know what I mean. If you've seen the movie, you know what I mean. Now, usually the princess in these Disney movies are usually the ones that gets the most marketing and focus, but Aurora here, or as she's called for most of the movie, Aurora, or sometimes Sleeping Beauty, they can't even get her name straight, is quite possibly one of the blandest character and least interesting princess, or just a character in general that Disney's ever produced. Bland, uninteresting design, and has very little effect on the plot, other than the fact she falls asleep. She's a plot device, not a character. And you could diss Snow White and Cinderella, but they had a lot going on, especially Cinderella. And Snow White is a fun character with unique designs. Aurora has none of that. She sucks. Her Prince Philip, on the other hand, has a little bit more development than the previous two princes who had none. What's weird about this character is halfway through the movie, he says, I'm leaving, father. And he has a lot of personality at first, you think, and he makes an interesting decision that's against his royal duties. You think, oh, let's see what more of his character. But when we see him again, he says nothing. He just comes mute. When he's angry, he just doesn't say anything. He just moves against the chain. When the fairies free him and give him weapons, he just doesn't say anything. He's like, wow, I guess that's cool. He doesn't say that, he just looks at it like, wow. You're like, what happened? Did his tongue get cut out or something? He says literally nothing the rest of the film. You'd think during all this stuff he at least makes like a scream sound or like for like all these thorns and fighting a dragon, but he says jack shit. Like, what the hell happened? Was this guy me? Anyway, I discussed the two biggest problems with this film, but it's still a good film. It just, compared to some of the previous films we discussed, I think it falls flat in that main area, and that's a really big area that the other films did better. I think the most interesting thing about this film is that the most popular and famous character from the film is the villain. Now, Disney has some pretty popular villains, but this is the one time where the villain outshines pretty much every other character. And while Maleficent is a great character, she doesn't have enough screen time for me to rank her as the top villain, even though she has a great design and great voice, being voiced and live-action modeled by the same woman who played Lady Tremaine, Eleanor Audley. Does a great job. Though she gets a big plus for turning into a giant dragon at the end. That's just really awesome. That's super cool. I love that. That's awesome. Look at his scared face. He's shitting his pants there. But, like I said, she has very little presence in the film, other than the very beginning and the very end. Doesn't do a whole lot. Says her minions are stupid, and then that's it. So it underplays what could have been a really great villain. She still is, but I feel like she's not as great as some of the other villains. Sorry, Maleficent, don't kill me. Another stunning example of what's good about this film is the design. It has a very unique design with kind of an angular look, and just very beautiful backgrounds, and some good high-quality Disney animation that you like to see. And to top that all off, at the end we get a Disney action scene, which we don't usually see a lot in these Disney films, so it's cool to see one. So I bet you're wondering, since I talked about this film, how some of the characters don't have that lot of screen time. Most of the film is taken up by the fairies doing funny things, I guess. They're alright. And there's a large section where it's just the two kings talking about who getting what and whose marriage is more beneficial. Like, why am I seeing the kings talk about this stuff? I don't really understand why they thought this was the most important thing to showcase. So Sleeping Beauty, structure-wise, is kind of a mess. It has some very beautiful elements and great ideas and concepts. Its execution is just very weak. I think a lot of that comes down to the production problems. This film went through a lot of different changes. It was supposed to be released a lot earlier than 1959. But the film kept getting rewritten and restructured over and over again. The animators trying to make it different than the previous Disney films, like Cinderella and Snow White, and ended up just, while making a good film, it ends up kind of feeling sloppy in the story department. Even though the ending is the best part of the film, it is actually just scrap material from Snow White, which I'm glad they got to reuse since this stuff's amazing, but at the same time, it showcases that they didn't have a whole lot of new stuff going on. In fact, in the original script, Maleficent was only going to be in the very first scene, which was a terrible idea. It's probably why she is not in the film that much, since she wasn't really tend to be that big a role. Good thing they changed that, but still, she doesn't have a lot of screen time. Do I recommend Sleeping Beauty? I would say so. However, would I recommend it over other ones of this genre on Disney? No, I can't. Alright, I actually forgot to mention this, but this is just funny. Maleficent's plan for the reason why she keeps him alive is that she wants him to grow old so that he can go actually do what he's meant to do, but he's an old-ass man, so he basically meant nothing, which is just a really funny idea. She's so vain, I love it. Sleeping Beauty would actually result in harder times for the Disney. This is the development problems, which is a whole lot of articles you can read about. Those would be me repeating the same thing. They had a script, canceled it, had our script, canceled it. But yeah. Essentially what this meant is that the film went over budget and it did not gross back the amount of money it took to make it, causing an actual loss in the Disney studio. Also around this time, the main head of state, Disney himself, was less interested in making films as he was, well, with his theme park, which had just opened up during the production of Lady and the Tramp. So, yeah, Sleeping Beauty was not top priority, and it kind of showcases it. It also meant that some of its pretty cool animation stuff was going to have to be scrapped a lot to make the animated films cheaper, which you'll definitely see in the next films. It's a film that's going to start our slow decline until we get to Walt Disney's death, and then we enter the Bronze Age. But it's the start of it, not the end. Despite all this, Sleeping Beauty has definitely made back its money and reception over time, despite not being that much beloved when it first came out, and not that earned much money as they wanted to. It's definitely gained a following, mostly due to its characters like Maleficent and the fairies, which a lot of people like. This is also the only film from the Silver Age, actually one of the only ones. There's very little that didn't get a direct-to-VHS or DVD sequel. I honestly could see one working for this more than Cinderella, of all things. I mean, if they brought back the character Maleficent from the dead, I mean, you can kind of see her getting revived more than anything else, but whatever. I think that could have worked if they wanted to do something like that, not that it really matters. For the live-action remake, they did something completely different by making it focus entirely on the villain. However, instead of making Maleficent, well, a villain, they're like, let's do the Wicked treatment, but make her a hero. It takes away a lot from the character and overall is messily developed, but it made enough money to get a sequel that bombed, so no one really gives a crap about this. Oh, there's a third one, apparently? No confirmed date? What? How's this even possible? No one even saw the last one. Oh well. So I don't talk about Kingdom Hearts that much because it's a whole rabbit hole, but I thought I'd mention it. There's not much Sleeping Beauty stuff, but Maleficent is a main villain in the series, one of the only Disney characters that really appears throughout the entire franchise constantly, which is kind of annoying. When I first played the game, I thought there was going to be more Disney stuff, but then it gets more and more weird crap that I just don't care about. I like Kingdom Hearts, but I get more disappointed the more I play the games. The first one's the best one, alright? Come at me! There's basically no Sleeping Beauty attractions other than Maleficent dragons appearing in shows, and fortunately Con of Fire. However, there is one giant one. The original Disneyland castle is in fact Sleeping Beauty's castle. This is before the movie came out, just to let you know. Why do they call it that? Marketing, of course. Of course, pretty much every other castle is a Cinderella castle. However, the Disneyland and the Hong Kong Disneyland one both have Sleeping Beauty's castle. And in the Disneyland castle, we got to walk through an attraction that retells the movies through stained glass, which is pretty cool. There's a whole evolution of this little attraction, which of course you can find on YouTube, pretty much like every other attraction. But that's pretty much it for Sleeping Beauty. On to the rankings. I put it on top of the C tier, or 7, if you will, for the movie ranking. I do not think it's the cream of the crop of the Silver Age. I think there have been better ones, and it almost could have gone up to B, but they're just little things I don't really care for as much as the previous films, unfortunately, for Sleeping Beauty. Still good, but not great. I talked a lot about Maleficent during the review part, so I won't get too much into the villain ranking. I do say she's an A-tier villain, almost an S-tier villain. She just needed that more, just a little bit more screen time, and it could have been up there. But for what she is, she's pretty great. For songs, there's not a whole lot of songs in Sleeping Beauty, despite the fact that Sleeping Beauty herself apparently has a beautiful voice. It's okay, it's nothing spectacular. But yeah, we got an F-tier song, unfortunately, Scumps. It's a generic drinking song, it sucks. Then in E-tier, we got The Gift of Beauty and Song. Boring. In D-tier, we got Sleeping Beauty, also pretty boring. So there you go, nothing really to say more than there. And then in C tier, we got Hail to the Princess Aurora, which actually doesn't sound too bad for what it is. I Wonder is just an okay song, but kind of forgettable, but doesn't sounds nice. And of course, I forgot to got rid of this in the way. We got an A tier song, Once Upon a Dream. Ha ha, get it. The main song has Dream in the title, Sleeping Beauty, you get it? Yeah. It's the most iconic song from the movie, and pretty well known. I like it, but I think I prefer cover versions over the original version. But that's okay. That's alright. Next time, the movie's going to look a lot more sketchy as we cover 101 Dalmatians. See you then. Hey, did you know I have a book? In fact, I have multiple books. They're available on Amazon. There should be a link in the description. However, I do have the digital versions on my Patreon, so if you want to support me and read what I have written, they're mostly kids' books, but you might enjoy it. After all, we all like SpongeBob, or whatever your video you're watching. I might reuse this clip. Then you can make sure to check it out. And thank you.